Okay, so good morning, everybody. Like Baba said, my name is Regina Honu, and I run Soronko Academy. So Soronko Academy is a coding and human-centered design academy, which is focused on bridging the gender gap in technology. So we've worked with women and girls in several regions. We've expanded to Burkina Faso. I consider myself a feminist, a tech, and a gender advocate. And we've done face-to-face trainings or different trainings, over 10,000 women and girls in coding, digital and human-centered design. And we recently helped run the National Pre-Tech Training Program with Ghana Tech Lab. So now the first question, which you can sort of lift your hand. When you hear the word gender, what's the first thing or the first word that you think of? So who wants to attempt this? I need a participant, or I should call names. Who's going to volunteer to answer when they hear the word gender? What's the first thing you think of? Okay, I'm calling names now. Okay, let me see. Let me go with Jones. Hello, Jones, are you there? Okay. Hello, Jones, or maybe Aaron. I just want somebody to tell me what they think of when they hear the word gender.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, so my understanding to gender is, should I say, male and female, and then male and female with regards to our social and then cultural differences. Either than
Okay. Okay.
So it is using our social and then cultural differences.
Okay. So for you, gender represents both male and female, right? Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so Jones is right if that was, yeah, is right. Gender does represent both male and female. And when we have that conversation about gender, it's important that we understand that it's not necessarily only for women, but most of the time when the word gender comes about, you hear it mostly tailored towards, how it's used is mostly tailored towards something to do with women, right? And so you have, when there are gender issues, more often than not, there's more of a turn towards women. But generally, gender refers to both male and women. And in understanding and building an inclusive society, you must understand that that balance is important. You need to look at it from those two perspectives of both men and women. Okay, so before we understand how we build these inclusive communities, it's important to get a little bit of information on context, right? So context is key. So these are just a few numbers that I put out there to paint the picture. So we're about 30 million. Our population is, I think it's 50.7 male and then 49.3 females. We have 130 million girls between the ages of 6 and 17 that are out of school. Girls are more likely than boys never to set foot in a classroom. Girls living in countries affected by conflicts are 2.5 times more likely to be out of school than boys are. And adolescent girls by conflicts are 90% more likely to be out of school than girls living outside conflict-affected zones. Now, if you look at the next slide, this is from a protest in South Africa. And I'm helping you to understand just generally the context of why it's even important to set up these inclusive societies for women and understand the journeys of women and girls across the world. It's important in understanding how you deliver value for the women and girls. So we have around 120 million girls worldwide, slightly more than 1 in 10, that have experienced some forced sex or forced sexual acts. Girls represent nearly 3 out of 4 children that are trafficked. And by 2030, over 150 million more girls will marry before they are 18, despite global progress. Today, the poorest girls are 4 times more likely to marry in childhood than the richest. And if you look at that image, it says, in my country, it's easier to get raped than get a job. Now, the conversation around these issues are also important, and we'll talk about it more as we go along. Now, if we look at Ghana's education landscape, these are some key demographics which will inform, what goes on, right? So we're looking at 24 million projected working population in 2020. This was projected before COVID. So I know that, now that we have COVID, it's really hit hard. And I don't think these projections may necessarily reflect for the working population. 2.4 of the working age population has vocational or technical education. So imagine just 2.4% of the working age population has vocational or technical education. 26% of the poorest girls complete primary school compared to 90% of the richest boys. And the median age of Ghana as of 2019 is 20 years old, right? 20.9. So let's say 21. So we are, relatively a young nation. 40% of unemployment rate for tertiary education holders. So imagine those who have tertiary education, we have a 40% unemployment rate. 15% of Ghanaian employers cite inadequate workforce skills as the major constraint to business expansion. And 2 times tertiary net enrollment in 2015, so which is good. So we are seeing an increase in our tertiary enrollment. 8 out of 10 working age people have less than secondary education, imagine. And 7.8% of tertiary female graduates in STEM programs are women. 7.8. I want that to also sink in. That's a very small number. 9 million of digital jobs in Ghana by 2030. And 20% of Ghanaian companies recruit only internationally for digital skills. I want that to also sink in. Okay. Now, I wanted to share also some market insights, which is going to be very important also for the conversation. So as part of the MasterCard Index for Women Entrepreneurs, we know that Ghana ranked very high. So amongst African countries, that the second country for female entrepreneurs was Ghana. So Uganda, I think, had 38%, and Ghana was 37.9%. So that means nearly 4 out of 10 working age women are engaged in some early stage entrepreneurial activity or have started a business one for a maximum of 3.5 years. But what is important to note is that some people start businesses. Also, you have female entrepreneurs that start businesses because they are driven by opportunity. Here, it's lower. So the motivation to be innovative and grow businesses on a larger scale tend to be lower than global and regional averages. And if you look at the women's advancement outcomes, there's a high labor force participation in Ghana. There's a high women's business leadership, surpassing their male counterparts, engaging in entrepreneurial activities. But it's important to note that this is mostly in the informal sector, right? And even though there are several issues such as poor underlying entrepreneurial support factors as compared to other countries. So for instance, one of the things that helps Ghanaian women is 40% have a bank account as opposed to other African countries. Now, some of the factors that inhibit us ranking high for female entrepreneurs is poor quality of governance, low women financial inclusion, poor support for SMEs, less opportunities for women to rise in workplaces as business leaders and professionals or technicians due to generally lower prospects for tertiary education and higher barriers to business. Okay. Then when you look at business ownership rates, which are, hello? Okay. So like I said, businesses are not driven by opportunity, but you see most of the women going into businesses based on need, so necessity. So we have a lot of the women that start businesses out of necessity. So here as part of the market insights, 4 in 10 entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, are driven into businesses out of necessity. Now, this fact or this information is important for understanding why some women don't complete programs, understanding how to engage the women for them to finish some of the programs that you start off at the hubs, how to get a high number of women to subscribe to some of these programs, because you must understand what drives the women and why would they come. So, I mean, some may be thinking, oh, I have a very engaging program and I think that the women are going to be interested in it. But understanding what drives the women will help you sort of design programs that will attract more women. Okay. And according to research from the World Bank, when you look at the Middle East and Africa regions, generally the women are marginalized in disparity when it comes to access to internet and technology. That's also another important component as we go along in our conversation. We have institutional barriers, access to funding, high interest rates, lack of collateral guarantees, complicated process, and lack of business track record to secure financing. Then you have your restrictive cultural and social norms among societies, whereby women business owners are often restricted by family or cultural expectations. And then you have lack of confidence needed to deal with the region's bureaucracies and financial institutions because of hostility and criticism. Okay, so now that we've talked about the market insights, I've painted a picture about the challenges that women and girls face. We're going to go on to gender in design, right? And this is really going to focus on how do we build women and gender inclusive communities. And I'm breaking down my presentation or my formula in 7 steps. So this is what I call the 7-step approach to building, a women or gender inclusive community. So the first approach is understand your target group. You must take some time to understand the women in your community, your country, and in your network. You cannot assume or make generalizations that, for example, if certain populations of women don't like tech, that means all women don't like tech. Or if certain populations of women that you've encountered give up easily, does not mean all women give up easily. Or if certain populations of women that you have encountered are very emotional or, seem to not want, does not mean all women are emotional or have resilience. So you don't have to do any generalizations. You also have to understand the circumstances that hold the women back and understand how to navigate the cultural, societal, religious, and ethnic leanings of women. And importantly, you must understand what they see as an opportunity. Now, when it comes to opportunity, I get a lot of this feedback where people say to me, oh, we present the women with opportunities, or maybe there was a job opening, I shared it with some women in my network, but they didn't apply. What is missing is what you see as an opportunity, the woman may not necessarily see as an opportunity. And this is based on her context and her circumstance, right? So before I transitioned into working as a social entrepreneur, when I worked in the bank, I remember there was a woman who was a teller, and she had to close. She would normally close at a particular time, and she had been a teller for a while. And there was an opportunity for her to advance in her career to become, I think, a back office operations staff. And she refused that opportunity because she said, look, she doesn't want to do too much. She's mastered how to be a teller. She closes at a particular time. She now understands how to, close at that time and go back and do what she needs to do for her family. If she advances in her role, even though she's going to get more money, she may, it's going to be too much time commitment for her because the back office staff may have to stay later and make sure that all the tellers have balance and so many things. And she doesn't want that because it will take away from her time spending with her family. So even though people were presenting this as an opportunity to her, she didn't see that as an opportunity. So to her, it was just going to be something that would burden her. So had there been a conversation with her to understand what does she see as an opportunity, maybe there would have been another role within the bank's organization where she would have seen that more as an opportunity, which would allow for her to have flexibility to balance work and family. And I think the most important thing also, as you are understanding your target group, which is women and girls, or trying to be more gender inclusive, is you need to be patient. In fact, it's a long walk, because once again, you must understand that women and girls have gone through so many different things across different generations. Now that there are a lot of empowered women, women that assert themselves, that speak their mind than there was before, does not mean that it's the norm. I always tell people that women like me, we are outliers. We are not the majority. We belong to the privileged few, and we are not the yardstick for measurement of how far women have come. Yes, there has been a lot of progress, but we still have a long way to go. So you must understand that it's a patient journey. You are not going to run a program in your hub. You even do a lot of free incentives. You make it very attractive, and then just instantly, the women gravitate towards it. There are some instances where that will happen, but if that does not happen, be patient. If some of the women come in and want to stop, understand that there's a lot happening. So once again, you have to be patient. But it also, how you design the program is also very important, right? So in designing programs in your hub, you must understand your target group and understand what works in your regions, right? So let me give you another example. During the National Pre-Tech Training Program, I went to all the regions that were part of the program. Not all, 4 of the regions that were part of the program, for 2 main reasons. I went with my monitoring and evaluation team, but I personally also wanted to go to these regions and understand the women in the regions. And by just visiting and coming to the hubs and, just even spending a day there in the hub would give me some insights to how women live there. Now, when we were there in one of the hubs, we were escorted by some of the women who were taking us, to show us another place that we had to go to. And in the car, the conversations that the women were talking about centered around, men and husbands. It was just so random, because they had just met like 2 people that had come in for a professional event. And, as soon as we finished introducing ourselves, they went straight to talking about, they were like, oh, how is it like finding men in, Accra? We hear the men are like this, and what I found interesting about that was, for the women in that region, that was a very important conversation. Maybe if you come and you are in a car ride in Accra in a professional environment, like probably the conversation will center around more of the business, right? But it quickly moved more into like finding a husband and finding a good man. I mean, that was important to them. So it's very important that you understand your target groups in your regions. So don't do any copy and paste of what is working in Accra, or you came to a program in another region and this was happening, and so you think it's just going to happen like that. Yes, you can replicate what you saw as a success, but try your best to understand the women in your community, in your country, generally, also in your network. So that's step 1. Now, the next step is understand the problem. So when it comes to understanding the problem, now I left the remaining slides blank so that we can have a conversation. So when it comes to understanding the problem, the first question you must ask yourself as you understand the problem is, why are you building a gender inclusive community? Is it because you want to help women attain better jobs? Is it because you want to help women advance in their careers? Is it because you've identified so and so problem in your community and you believe that the program that you are running will help the women? So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is, be clear on the problem you are trying to solve. So it's not just because, everybody's running AI training for women, and then you are like, okay, AI training is popular, so let me also run AI training in my hub. The question is, why are you running AI training? What is the problem you are trying to solve? What are the women going to do with the AI training skills? And the most important thing, what happens after the AI training? Because if you have not understood the problem that you are solving and you just go about creating programs that are not addressing a problem, then essentially the women are just come to hang around. But they will come because maybe they are not doing anything and they see this as something to do for those that come. But if it's not solving a problem for the women, then really the question is, what is the point? So as you are designing these communities, understand the problem you are trying to solve. So let me give you another practical example. At Soronko Academy, we have different programs that we run. When we first started out, we were doing advanced coding skills. And for us, we believe that to train these women in these advanced coding skills would really help them in the job market because there was a demand for advanced coding skills. But what we realized when we started the training was most of the women did not even have the basics, right? So here you are teaching a woman, full stack web development, but then she doesn't even know how to use Microsoft Office well. She doesn't know how to do a PowerPoint well. She doesn't know how to do Excel. So then we had to change, we had to go back and really ask ourselves, what is the problem we are trying to solve? Even though we want to bridge that gap and get more women to sort of use advanced tech coding skills, the main problem is they don't even know the basics. So we have to change our focus and come back to designing a program that addresses the basics for the women. The other thing that we discovered is that when you are teaching some of the women, let's say full stack web development or mobile app development, it's a long journey, right? Especially for women that did not have any prior background. For them to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, Python, and build a fully functional website for a client will take some time. And one of the things we understand is that women don't have that much time. So quickly, we introduce WordPress Wix because that makes things faster, right? And it allowed the women to be able to build functional websites quicker. So we also understood that for the women, it's all about having skills that will help them get some money. So it's not necessarily that they want to develop technical skills because they believe that these are important skills to have. It's also essential for them to have skills that allow them to get money. So we had to think about the fact that the women don't have so much time, but are looking for skills that help them either generate more income in businesses that they have or help them advance in jobs that they have. So it's important that you understand what is the problem and don't just replicate something that is just working somewhere when it is not a problem for the women in your community. Now, the other thing that we did was at Soronko, we realized we had a session on resilience. And during that resilience session, we asked the women to really open up and talk about several issues. It was during that session that we realized that the women had deep, dark issues that they didn't have any avenues to discuss. So in the session, we discovered that one of the women in the class that you see walking around very happy and cheerful had been gang raped when she was in university and told nobody. So this woman is walking around in fear of, so if you even have a class where it's majority men and she joins this class, after some time, she'll probably stop. Because as the men start to assert themselves more in the space, she will have flashes to her horrible experience. So then again, we understood that it's important to take a step back and try and figure out what are some of the challenges that the women have, or what are some of the issues that they've had to go through. And so currently at Soronko, one of the things that we do is we are hiring a counselor to even work with the women on emotional issues, because you can't fix somebody who is broken, right? You are trying your best to empower somebody, but when somebody is broken, they don't have the foundation to be fixed. So this is why taking that time to understand the problems for the women in your community is essential. Step 3, understand your channels, right? Now, the most important thing about community is engagement, right? So when you have your community, it must be engaging. I mean, a community that's not engaging, I mean, people will leave, people will not stay on. So in all our community engagements, the question is, what channels do we use so that we are able to have maximum engagement? So as you are engaging with women, and so now we've talked about you understanding, your target group, understanding the problem. As you are designing these programs for women, you must understand your channels. How do you reach out to the women, right? That's the first channel, the first conversation. So in different communities, there are different channels that you use. In some communities, if you don't go on radio, in fact, nobody heard what you want to run in your house. So radio can be a powerful channel in some communities because people trust radio. In fact, in African countries, radio is such a powerful channel, right? Because that's where a lot of people go in for conversations, and when they hear things on the radio, they believe it. I also even remember that back in the day when I was younger, there was even a conversation around if something is an advert is on TV, then it's real, right? So we were having a discussion, and some of the women were like, "Look, if they see any adverts on TV, whatever is being advertised on TV, they believe it to be real." So there are some people that appreciate certain channels. So radio is an important channel. The second one, obviously, is WhatsApp, which is also another very key channel. But within the WhatsApp groups, you must understand how you keep interaction going on and how you create safe spaces even within that WhatsApp group as a channel. Another important channel is SMS, right? So at Soronko, when we are running programs, we understand that we have women from different walks of life. So we explore different channels to reach the women. So even in as much as we use social media a lot, we understand it's not every woman that is on social media. And as much as we will send out emails, so when we are running a program, we'll put it out on social media. We'll send out emails. One of the things we've come to understand is it's not everybody that can afford data, especially women and girls. So if you send an email to somebody, a woman, you probably have to follow up with a call or a text message for those who are used to getting emails, because even those who have an email address and check emails, they don't check it regularly to know that there's even a message there. So we have radio, we have SMS, we have WhatsApp, we have email, we have social media, we have referrals, recommendations, and still phone calls, right? So you still have to be able to call the women. For some of the women and girls, you have to reach out to them either after you've used all these channels, you still have to call them in some instances. Because when you advertise an opportunity, some women may see it and not understand what you are saying. Because mind you, across your communities, certain words that you, so even for us, when we are advertising our programs, we are mindful of the language that we use to advertise, right? Of how we word certain things. So how I would have advertised something to reach out to women in a particular group is not the same words that I will use to advertise to another group. So we even word our ads in a particular way to reach out to the audience such that they connect with the message. And we explore all these different channels. So it's not one channel that we use. So like I said, you have your radio, SMS, WhatsApp, email, social media, referrals and recommendations, and then phone calls, right? One of the things that we also have to be mindful of is, as you are sharing and connecting with the women in all these different channels, there are several sort of people that are allies that will also share. So you have to format your messaging in all the different channels, right? So if you're sending SMS, you have 160 characters. How can you put that in a short form? And sometimes there are instances where you need an intermediary. So somebody who can reach out to the women and also explain things to them, even in local language. Because once again, even though we're an English-speaking country, you know that for some people that go to certain schools and come from certain communities, you know, they are more comfortable in local language. So sometimes it may require speaking in local language. And as you put out application forms for women to fill for different programs, once again, you must expand your channels, right? So there may be instances where you put out a form online. It's not everybody that can go online and fill that form to apply for your program. So for some women, they may not even apply because the first process, which is apply online, is like, they have no idea how to do that. So for some of the applications, the route may be you let them send just a text message of their number, right? So if somebody has seen a program and they want to apply, in some instances, the first channel of application is they text their number and then you call them and step them through the process. So that is one instance. You have another instance whereby you shorten the URLs for your application forms and send it via different channels. So on WhatsApp, and you make it clickable. Also, when you send SMSs, you can send the application form by SMS and make the application form clickable by SMS if they have data. Also, radio is another powerful channel. So if you are going to go on radio, the call to action, there have to also be different calls to action. Once again, you can put out a number for people to call. You can put out a link for people to go online and apply. Like you just say the URL, very simple. So if you're going to go on radio, make sure that if you have an application form URL, you have it in a short formatted form, or you have bought a domain for it. So maybe if your hub wants to, so maybe if we are going to apply, we'll tell people that apply to www.mydigitalskills.org/apply, something simple if you're going to do that on radio. But easily you can also put out a number that the women can reach out to. So you must have multiple channels for the women, for you to be able to engage with the women and increase your numbers. So in our recent national pre-tech training program that we ran across the hubs, we saw there were like over 2,064 applications and that came in. Some women applied multiple times because, you know, they felt like they need to apply several times. But one of the things that we discovered is after we asked some of the women, how did they hear of the program? And it was very interesting. For some of the women, there was a lot of referrals and recommendations. In fact, that was one of the growing trends, a lot of referrals and recommendations, such that the women themselves did not hear of the opportunities themselves. It was somebody that told them about the opportunity. In one instance, a woman said her pastor shared it on their church WhatsApp group, right? So you will have different people that also sort of spread the message to reach out to more women. And we had instances of other organizations finding the message and then spreading it. And then you had women also hearing about it or also seeing it online. So it's important that you explore different channels to be able to reach out to the women and connect. So that's step 3. Step 4, creating safe spaces. Now, I cannot overemphasize this enough as you are creating these communities. The first question that you must ask yourself as a hub is, do you have a policy around safety and sexual harassment, and how do you address those things if they happen in your hub? As you are engaging more and more women, I mean, this is life, right? And it is very possible that there will be instances whereby maybe a trainer may come into the room and be training a group of women and be like, yo, this is the woman of my dreams sitting right there. And you know, when there is that balance of power where you have somebody who is like well knowledgeable in a subject, sometimes it's easy for even the women to also be attracted to maybe the trainers or some men in the space, because, you know, like, hey, they'll be like, hey, this guy, he's so smart, look at him, and may also be tempting the men. Or so it's important that you address the conversation on 2 sides. How are you ensuring that you are creating these safe spaces for the women? but also how are you ensuring that you are protecting your team that works there? And how are you ensuring that you are protecting all the people that come and engage in your community? So let me give you another example. Recently, I think earlier on this year, there was a very interesting Twitter debate that happened. So there's a lady who used to work at Meltwater Entrepreneurial School of Technology. And as part of what Meltwater does, they have these sessions, these mentor-mentee sessions. And during these mentor-mentee sessions, there was a mentor from Nigeria that came into, have an engagement with the Meltwater entrepreneurs, the EITs. And after the engagement at Meltwater, the lady was sort of the one, she worked at Meltwater, so she was the one coordinating these sessions. So she went to meet the mentor outside of Meltwater. She went to meet the mentor somewhere. And as soon as she walked into wherever it is that I think they met either at an office or something. As soon as she went to meet the mentor, they sat down, she was talking to the mentor, who was a very well-known, well-respected male in the tech space. He pulled out his penis and told her that she can do whatever she wants to do with the penis. Okay. What this lady did obviously was leave. She felt very uncomfortable, but there was no space for her to discuss it. What she did was she told some of her colleagues at her organization, but she didn't escalate the issue, and she left it at that. Why she decided to come out and share her story on Twitter was because there was a trending conversation around rape in Nigeria. She's now left, and she's not in Ghana anymore. And even Meltwater came out to sort of condemn the issue. And I think the gentleman in question had to face some repercussions. The point I'm making with this example is, as a hub, make sure you have these policies and make sure that when the women come, they know that you have these policies and they know that you are thinking about that. Let there be spaces where they can complain if they feel any type of uncomfortable situation. So as part of your orientation for women, it should be in the package, a policy that clearly outlines spaces for how you've created your hub as a safe space for these women. If there should be any sexual harassment issue, these are the channels of reporting. Your hub takes this very seriously. Trainers are not allowed, to, unless, you can make that as a policy if that's up to you. If trainers are allowed to fraternize. So for us, when we ran our Tech Needs Girls program, we were very clear. In fact, we put this in a trainer's contract. We do not accept trainers having any relationship or engagement with the young girls, right? So if we feel that any trainer is being inappropriate with any of the girls, is grounds for immediate dismissal, and we will report that issue. So we made it very clear from the beginning that we don't tolerate it. Not only do we sort of sack you from our operations, we'll report you because we don't take lightly to that. So ensure that you have these policies in place so that the women feel safe. The women feel like if anything is happening that they're uncomfortable with, they have a mechanism to report, they have a way to talk about it. And have these conversations, because trust me, they happen a lot, more often than you would think that they do. And also other thing about safe spaces is you must create a space to encourage the women to talk. Now, I know it's not easy. When you have a program, and you are trying to engage the women, you ask a question and the women are not talking because everybody's looking at everybody. Nobody wants to sound stupid. Nobody wants to be the one that did not give a sensible answer, right? So you have to encourage the women to be able to openly discuss and share. And this goes in creating these safe spaces. So you have to be, and it can start, you can apply different methodologies. So for example, when we were doing the monitoring and evaluation in the hubs, I knew very well that as I've come to the hubs to talk to the women and engage with them, when I ask some questions, there may be some women that will not immediately sort of engage or talk. It will take some time. And because I knew that I didn't have a lot of time, what I did was I took sticky notes. so that the women can express themselves in the sticky notes, because I knew that I would need to take some time to engage the women for them to feel comfortable to share. So when I gave them the sticky notes, they quickly put in their comments and feedback, and it gave me more insights than, because when I walked in and I said, oh, hello, my name is blah, 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 Regina, and I asked them, what do you think about so and so? Nobody was talking, you know, but when I gave them the sticky notes, they really poured out what they wanted to tell me, right? So you must also find out how to connect with the women and take some time to do that, because like I said, it's a patient journey. So figure out, does it mean sometimes you call out some of the women? It's not putting them on the spot, but you call them out in an interesting, fun way, such that you are just encouraging them to speak. So sometimes when we are having trainings, we realize that some of the women want to talk. You can even see it, so you can read from their body language that they want to talk, but they are shy. So you have to encourage them. And one of the things that we do is we do a lot of icebreakers in our program to allow for that interactivity and that safe space building and that sort of engagement. So once people get to know people, they are more comfortable to talk, right? Once people get to know that, oh, look, we are from similar backgrounds, we are from similar situations, they feel comfortable. And once they know that whatever submission they give is not stupid. So we always tell the women, whatever you say here, there's no wrong answer. We encourage different perspectives, because even especially in our spaces which focus a lot on innovation, we don't want everybody to say the same thing. So we tell the women that, look, you are in an innovation space, and what drives innovation is different ideas and perspectives. So talk. You can be bringing the next big idea. Maybe you don't know it, but if you don't talk, your idea is there. So just don't say, like, and if you say something and it even seems quote unquote ridiculous or funny, we encourage the women, and we encourage other women, don't laugh at somebody's suggestions or somebody's feedback. Let them speak. And you must identify the shy ones in the crowd and support them to speak. So, you know, normally when you ask questions, there will be the strong dominant women that will always lift up their hand and want to engage. Sometimes call on the other women that don't want to talk, you know, and maybe give incentives. You know, incentives works. Everybody likes to get something. So for some of us, will be like, hey, even it can be something simple, even a bar of chocolates. It'll be like, hey, the person who answers this, or airtime, or, you know, will get 1 point. So for us, one of the things that we do at the academy is we have a point system for those who answer questions. So we have a visible board in the classrooms, and we have the names of all the women that are taking part in a particular program, and we have a point system. So each time you engage more, you get more points. So at the end, the person who gets the most points will win something, you know, and so it brings about this fun, competitive way of getting the women to engage more, because the more they talk, the more they bring ideas, the more they get points, and at the end, we'll give them very nice surprises that they are all very excited about. So it's important that you create these safe spaces, you create this engagement, and then finally, creating safe spaces goes past your hub, right? Because like I said, the women are all coming from somewhere. So sometimes it may mean even a conversation around their backgrounds at home. So at Soronko Academy, we have had to intervene, even in home situations whereby, you know, a husband, a father, a brother is like, no, I don't want my daughter, my wife, my sister to continue this program because of whatever reason that they have. We have to sometimes come in and call these people and talk to them. Sometimes we have to even go there and engage with them to let them understand why this is important. I remember when we run some programs, you know, when you're running a program past a certain time, it can be, the people in the women and girls spaces are very concerned, like, hey, what time are they going to come home? Are they going to be safe and all of that? So we are also mindful of the time we run programs and understand that if we are going to run a program at a particular time and it's going to eat late, we must even be sure that we coordinate the women's transportation back home and check in what time they got there, right? So even if you are going by yourself, we have to do a check-in when you've reached, if we run programs very late. So we try not to run programs too late because we have to consider the safety of the women. You also have to consider even the general safety of your hub. what is the exit route in case of anything, and how open is the hub? So in case there's somebody, armed robber or somebody who enters your hub, what is the protocol? What is the system? So you must have all this in place. So if God forbid there's some people that enter the hub when you're having training, what is the protocol? What do you do? If there's a fire, what is the protocol? What do you do? If you've come and there's been a break-in, what is the protocol? What do you do? So you have to have all these thought processes as you are creating these safe spaces, and also understand how to keep that engagement even outside the hubs to allow the women to continue to engage. And the last, So now, step 5 is understanding sustainability. Everything that you do at the hubs as you are building your communities for women and gender, you have to ensure that it's going to be sustainable, right? So you can start a training program and run it for a period, and then train a number of women, and then you can do a post-evaluation, maybe after 3 months, 2 months, ask the women, what are they doing? And they'll be like, oh, nothing. We didn't have laptops to practice. Oh, we after the program, we didn't get any support, so all of those things, you really have to factor in the sustainability of the programs that you are running. Because what happens when you don't factor in that sustainability is, if you check back and you do your post-evaluation and the women are not doing anything much with the training, it frustrates them. And they will spread the word that, oh, we went for some training at this hub, but after we are doing nothing. So if somebody else wants to go for training, they'll be like, this thing crying, nothing happened, though. We are just there. And I can't stress enough, you cannot give a woman hope and not sustain it. So you don't give her hope, you draw up a great program, she comes, she completes, and then nothing happens. You, as a hub, you've done your part, you did the training. It's not enough, and it's not fair. In order to create a community, you must keep sustainability of the projects that you are running, and you must understand how to keep engagement going. So for example, at Soronko Academy, we understand that resources is a challenge. So even this was what allowed us to set up the academy. So when we were running the training programs, before we set up the academy, when we ran Techniques Girls, we used to go around from community to community training women. And that was a model that we thought would work. But what we realized from that model was that after you leave and you come back and you do a post-evaluation, the women don't remember. And when a community doesn't understand what an empowered woman is, they beat her down even more. So you leave her in a worse state than you found her. If you empower her and then you don't continue to support in some way, you don't continue to engage in some way. So you can't just come run a program, the women are excited, they learned a new skill, and then nothing. And you as the hub, you have done your part. It's not enough. So you must think about, how do you sustain the programs? It doesn't mean that they always have to keep coming back, but how do you keep some type of engagement going on? So for us at Soronko Academy, one of the things that we do is after every training program, every cohort, there's a WhatsApp group that we form with every single cohort. That allows us to keep that engagement going. All the women in our programs are entered into a database. Every week, or as much as possible, we send out opportunities to these women to keep that engagement going. We also reach out to the women with to see if they need help. So every 3 months, we call them and check in and say, how are you doing? Do you need some help? How are things going? And we use that not only for tracking our impact, but also just a support system for the women to say, oh, we know you came for this training. How's it going? Is there any help that you need? Is there any gap that we can fill in? And this is part of our program design, such that we keep working with the women. Now, I'm going to share, yesterday I was on another talk with Azubi Africa, which is a GIZ initiative. And the lady who interviewed me, who is also an Azubi Africa graduate, I met her when she was in university, and I never physically met her, right? So how we connected was, she wanted to do computer science, but she was struggling when she was at KNUST, and she wanted to give up. And she discussed, there was a gentleman who brought her son in, and they were like, they should learn together. But she was telling her father that, you know, she wants to stop. And her father was like, oh, I heard on radio, this lady called Regina, she was talking about some program that she's doing with Nima. I think you should Google her. So she Googled me, found out about what I was doing, and then she decided to, she found out also that one of the mentors in our program was a woman that she knows. So she reached out to that mentor and then got my number. She connected to me, and then she formed a WhatsApp group for the women in KNUST that were studying computer science, and we kept engagement. I have been in that lady's life up till now. She became one of the only females that worked at GCNet in the networking department. Now she is into internet policy. She does some work at Hack Lab. She's doing a lot of freelance. She's just an unstoppable force, right? But I have journeyed with her from uni up till now, and I'm still journeying with her. You know, so she's still in our network. So it's not enough. So what we say as Soronko is we work with the women forever. Like we don't start. So from our tech needs girls, some of them we keep that active engagement with. Yes, there's a possibility that some fall off, but you have to put in mechanisms to ensure that you can connect with the women and help put in some sustainability. And sustainability can even just be phone calls, right? So today I'm going to call another lady who is struggling in her tech journey and needs some advice and mentorship. And as part of sustainability, I cannot stress enough mentorship, mentors, creating that network of mentors, right? So like I said, the lady I'm talking about who is called Lily was going to give up till she saw she heard about me. So that mentor-mentee relationship is very important. I was going to give up also in my own personal journey till I met Farida Bedwe. So I was also so inspired by Farida because we both worked at Rankard. And I was like, wow. In fact, Farida was just another unstoppable force, you know. So role modeling is important. And it's important that as you are building sustainability in these communities, you are helping the women connect with mentors because it is such a long journey from when you start empowering a woman for her to reach her full potential. Sometimes it can take, you know, generations. But what is important is transfer of that knowledge from one generation to the next. So I'm making sure that if whatever happens, you build that transfer, and that mentor-mentee relationship is important. So build that network of mentor-mentees. It doesn't necessarily have to be all in one industry. Build it across different industries, but create and engage with these mentors to build some sustainability in the projects that you are running. It's very important. So think about how do you sustain the programs past what you are doing. And then the final piece, the final two pieces is plan for contingency. Now, when you design a program, as you know from designing all the programs, or when you are creating communities, you put something on paper, you go out to the field, and then it's a different animal altogether. So you must always have a plan A and a plan B. So for us, one of the things that we do, even when we select women who benefit from our program, we select more than the required number because we know that there may be some women that will not be able to fully commit to the program. And so you must always have contingency plans when you are designing these programs. You must understand that, you know, there may be some issues that may arise, maybe out due to home chores, house chores, women having to, you know, do other things. They may not be able to fully engage. So there may be some contingency plans. What do you do? So, and even as part of contingency, a good example is COVID-19. If you were running a program during COVID-19, how would you continue to engage? So for us at Soronko, one of the things that we do is how do we connect with them online? But knowing that connecting with somebody online requires resource allocation, requires laptop. One of the programs that we are about to run is we actually we'll be giving the women laptops, women that need laptops. We will rent the laptops to them to be able to continue and programming when there's any break in transmission. And for some of our girls that were entering in university, we were able to support them also with laptops. And at the academy, you can stay here the whole day, right? If once you are in our program. And so one of the things we also started to do is we also started to provide spaces for some of the women in our network to be able to work from the academy, even though we don't offer co-working space, right? So you have to put in different contingencies for programs. And then the last piece is keep momentum. You must keep the fire burning as you create these communities. And you must have fun, engaging ways of keeping momentum. Sometimes, you know, you have these, so one of the things that we do at the academy is, in addition to all the trainings that we do, sometimes we have these sessions where we just unwind. We have this program called the Showcase. It's a fun day where we allow the women in our network who are entrepreneurs to come and showcase their products and services, and to come and do some sales. We add different side attractions. You can come with the kids. There are fun activities that they can do. So, I mean, there are ways that you keep that momentum going and you keep that engagement going. So, and you must also make sure that you build this brand following. So if you mention Soronko, our brand attracts women and girls because we've been intentional about building that brand and keeping that momentum. And we do that a lot with social media and with the different engagement. So from the day that we started Soronko, if you go online, you see everything that we've done. This has allowed us to not only keep momentum, but attract international and local support. So one of the things that we enjoy a lot of, because we are able to keep that momentum, is that we are approached by a lot of organizations that want to work with us because we are visible in the space. We have taken our position as a market leader in the space when it comes to empowering women and girls in digital and tech. And we keep our focus and our momentum. So it's important that as you are creating these communities, you keep that momentum going. You keep that engagement. You keep that, you know, brand. You keep it running. So it's not start and stop, start and stop. Maybe you try to run a program, you didn't get a lot of women, you're like, I'm tired of this thing, then you stop. No. You start, you keep going. So we also have a lot of false starts. We try some programs, it's not a hit. We come back to the drawing board, we redesign it, and we keep going. So whatever you do, always keep the momentum going. So thank you all very much. I'm going to pause here and then take some questions and answers. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Hello? Regina.
Yes, hello. Yes.
Yeah. My name is David. Thank you very much.
You're welcome,
The
David.
presentation was very insightful. I really appreciate it. But I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. Please, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you.
With regards to the sexual harassment policy. So in a case where a trainer wants to marry a trainee, what do you do about that?
That's a good question, David. So, you know, so this is a very good question, and you must ask yourself, as the hub, what is your policy? So when it comes to the sexual harassment, clearly they are adults. They can marry whoever they want to marry. But as an organization, you have to ask yourself, what is your own policy? If you allow it, that's fine, so far as there was no complaint about any sexual harassment. But in some instances, there may be the challenge of maybe the wife now being overly suspicious of the trainer when he has to coordinate training sessions because that's where they met each other, or maybe what is it called? Other women also thinking that it's okay for them to be doing all sorts of things with trainers, which brings around confusion and may bring around that issue of sexual harassment. So it depends on you as a hub. Once you decide that if there's a clear reporting, but if they're adults, if they want to engage in, they want to get married, it's up to you if that is, you are fine with it as the policy for the hub. But you must think about what might happen. If they are going to be mature about it, that's fine, right? But it's up to you. So I remember even when I worked at the bank, we were like, before, at a point in time, bank employees could not marry each other. That was a policy at the bank, and it was clear from the beginning. But then later on, they relaxed that because the bank employees were working so much at the bank that they were not finding husbands and wives. And some of them wanted to quit. So then they decided that they would relax that policy. So it depends on you, but just make sure that there's a clear understanding of what constitutes sexual harassment. So make that also clear.
Okay.
You see, so first define what is sexual harassment. So don't leave it blanket. Sexual harassment is in the sky. What does it mean? So define what is sexual harassment and define what are your terms for engagement at your hub. And then the rest, they're adults, so they can do what they want. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions?
Hi, Regina.
Hello.
Hi, Regina.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so with regards to being intentional about doing your delivery when it comes to training and all that, I want to find out how easy it is when it comes to a class that has a mixture of the female and the male, because for your end it's just a girls class, so it's easier to use an approach that will suit them and then do your delivery in a way that would attract them and keep their, the momentum and all that. But when it comes to a class that has both, what do you do so that it doesn't look like you are imbalanced in your delivery?
Okay, so when it comes to that mixed class, you not only have two challenges to deal with. You have the first challenge of the different genders, and then you have the second challenge of different levels, right? So there's a possibility that maybe some of the men may be a little bit further advanced, and as the trainer or as the person ensuring adequate delivery, some of the things that can work is ensuring that you do group pairings or pairing. So like do a lot of people working in groups, right? So that helps. Ensuring that you do a buddy system. So a buddy system is where you assign somebody to somebody. So it's like the two of you are supposed to support each other through the journey, right? And then when you are giving out examples, make sure that you give examples that appeals to both the men and the women. So for example, if you're running the training and you are explaining something, don't just keep your examples towards one gender. Like maybe you'll be talking about algorithms, then you use football or something. Keep the examples both tailored towards both, and then encourage both the genders. So you may have to do a little bit more to encourage the women to speak out, but make sure that you are intentional about encouraging them. Work on the buddy system, like just tell the guys, oh, okay, we are going to pair you, do a lot of group work. And then if there's a way that you can even get the women to connect with mentors, also being intentional just for the women, get them to maybe as a special session, they have just one time, maybe they get a mentor to come and just engage with them. That would also be great to help them keep that momentum going. So when you have that mixed both genders, it's not easy. You'll have some of the women that are very forceful and keep going. But I think what works is putting them in groups, doing a buddy system, encouraging the more reserved women to speak out. So don't just let the guys run the class. So if maybe there's a tendency for the guys to always be wanting to present, wanting to answer the question, so put it out to the women and make sure that as you are creating that groups, you have that balance, and then you put out a requirement that some of the women should also come and present. So you can't just have only the guys presenting. If you have that group, make sure that you encourage the women to present. And then if you can get a mentor to help the women separately, that would also be a plus.
Okay. So one last thing about that, if you want to put out a flyer and then so you call for applications, is it okay if you do two different ones, one that actually is targeting or getting the attention of women to see and then get interested?
Exactly. In fact, I cannot stress that enough. It may seem like, why? Because if you put out a general flyer for both men and women, the women should also see it. to be honest, you know how we say Ghanaians don't read. It's all about image appeal. So you you see, you can put a billboard in a community or in a space and you ask some people, have you seen this billboard? Some people have never seen that billboard, even though the billboard has been there forever, because it doesn't speak to them. So they can bypass that billboard 10 times. They don't see the billboard. So you must tailor make your ads to speak to your audience, right? So it's important that you separate. So what speaks to men, interestingly, does not necessarily speak to women. So even how you design the call for applications, if the women don't see an image that appeals to them or connects to them, they just keep it moving because they don't see anything that identifies with them. So they may not even notice it, right? In the same vein, if you did out an all-female ad, it's possible that the men may immediately interpret that to be it's just for women. So if you want to be deliberate about getting one particular group, you must be deliberate in your messaging. It cannot be one size fits all. There are some instances where there's a general ad that speaks to everybody, but if you want to really drive that engagement, you must tailor make your call for applications.
Okay. Thank you very much, Regina.
You're welcome.
Okay. Please, we are open to get a lot of questions from you for discussion.
Hi, Regina.
Yes, hello.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So in our world, we have gender equality. We have to think what a man so if they are given women all special treatment, and that's won't that be like they feel like they are in order to
sorry, there's feedback. I can't really hear your question. Let me see. Let me start sharing. I can't really hear your question. Can you repeat it again?
Yeah, I'm saying that in our part of the world now, we are all fighting for gender equality. And I'm having saying that what a man can do, women can do it better. So we are giving like all these special treatments to the ladies in the class, where there are also men as well. Won't the men feel cheated or feel that we are giving all the attention to the women?
Okay, that's a good question, Rita. Now, it boils down to this conversation around equity as opposed to equality, right? And what that means is that you have to let the communities that you're engaging with understand that you are striving towards equity. What that means, it doesn't mean like you are giving women special attention because they are women. It means you are fixing a system that restricted women from opportunities. So it starts from even childhood. You know, based on our cultural, societal setting, a man is supposed to go out there. A woman is supposed to, you know, take care of the home and family and blah, blah, blah. So what that means is that from an early stage, based on where the woman is coming from, she would have been conditioned that a man leads, a woman follows. So she may not necessarily feel that she's a natural leader. And so what we are trying to do is build equity, whereby we are breaking down those systems. And in order to do that, we must erase all the things that have been happening and continue to happen. So it's not like a special treatment, it's just ensuring that we remove hurdles for the women, whereby most instances, the men may not have those similar hurdles. Now, even in terms of like utterances, like things that women have to hear daily, you know, if you are in certain communities where women are empowered or they're in a supportive system, you won't hear like, oh, you think that it's equal opportunity, but it's not the case for all. So it's important that you explain to the communities, especially to the men, and show them the perspective of the women. Even if you look at COVID, and I'll give you a very typical example. During COVID, we were both at home. Now, I'm a very empowered woman. My husband is also a very empowered man. But when we were both at home at COVID, when it came to house chores and cleaning and cooking and all of that, everybody was looking at me, right? So I had to give up most of my work because at the end of the day, I'm the woman, right? My husband was supporting and helping, but still, as the woman, I had to do majority of the work. So when there were certain opportunities, I couldn't go for them because I had to take care of my daughter and you know and the household, you know. So there are certain inequalities and certain barriers that serve as hindrances. So all we are trying to do is make equitable access for both men and women. So explain to your community, especially the men, the perspectives that the women have to go through, and explain to them that it's not special treatment. It's just trying to level the playing field such that they can compete equally. And I think as the men will understand, they want a woman that is competent in terms of her skills. It's not just because she's a woman. So in order for that to happen, we are just trying to remove all those barriers such that we build and we remove those obstacles so that the woman can discover and develop herself. Other than that, those barriers exist and we can't pretend that they don't exist, right? So you have to be mindful of those barriers and understand that all we are trying to do is remove the barriers so that it's an equal, equitable running field for both men and women to excel. So are there any more questions? We have a few minutes. We have like about 20 minutes to go. Are there any more questions?
Yes, I have a little question.
Okay.
My name is Anapoka from Dansen Hub.
Hello.
So my class is more female populated than male.
Okay.
On an average, I get up to 5 males out of like 17 and then to 17 females.
Okay, that's good.
So in this case, it's more like even the women, my ladies are even overshadowing my guys because the guys are not talking, almost not at all. Even though I can say out of the 5, about 3 of them have a much advanced understanding of the work we do. So recently I noticed the system where more of our ladies are approaching the guys with their issues. So maybe we are working on a particular form of code and then we have the guy sitting close by and she leans over and says, oh, can you help me look at this? Can you help me look at this? Okay, so the guys do that. But then I'm a little worried because my guys are not contributing so much in class. So not everyone is getting their full impact of what they know.
Yes.
Only a few ladies are doing that.
Yeah.
And then the ladies too that are really quiet and really shy, you have to push them yourself, the trainer, push them to come out of their shell and get them to talk and participate.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, is there a way to coordinate with a class that has such an imbalance of gender, such few guys, so many ladies? Is there a way to put that into a balance?
Yeah. So one of the ways you can address this, and thank you so much. One of the ways you can address this is, like we said in the beginning, gender applies to both men and women, right? So you will have to first look for other activities during the sessions, like icebreakers. That always helps to get that engagement. Encourage the men, just as you would the women, to also speak. Encourage the men to come up and maybe lead a particular session, or encourage the men to, call them out. For the women that you keep having to encourage to speak, continue to do that. But in a similar vein, also ensure that you create groups within the class session, and then maybe on Fridays, everybody in a group will have to present, whereby everybody gets the opportunity to speak. So as you know that the men are feeling outnumbered because they are the minority, encourage them to speak, call them out the same way you're calling out the women, and do some icebreakers. Like we use Kahoots, we use we have a 2 truths, 1 lie, we have certain activities. So put in some activities that they can work together, put in some group work that they have to work together and they must present. And as part of the group work presentation, everybody must talk because everybody will get a score. So you'll have to put in as much effort to also get the men, because everybody's insight is important also. So these are all like the different ways that you can get them all to engage and to also speak out.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Hello, I have a question,
Yes,
Regina.
Yes.
All right, sure. My name is Doreen, and thanks a lot for the presentation. I mean, it's been very inspiring and educative. I especially like the fact that you added more examples and data to back everything that you're saying. So I have a question around, so let's say, for instance, if you're organizing a training session, I mean, I joined the session late, so I'm not sure if you addressed this earlier, but you mentioned during your presentation that there has to be an exit strategy for your training program. So let's say, for instance, you're organizing a program and then a trainee comes in and realizes even in the environments that the number of females occupying positions in that hub is even lower. So let's say a practical example. I come into your hub and I notice that most of the trainers are men and the trainers are the technical people in that particular environment. Do you think it is going to affect the level of motivation for these women in the program? So, I mean, you're telling me that I can also enter into this space, but I can then realize that the women there are probably in administration, you know, and I don't really see women in the technical position in your hub. Does this actually affect my motivation for the program and possibly affect my exit strategy? So when I come out of the program, am I inspired to also go into that position or not?
Yes, so that's a very good question, Doreen. Thank you. So this question can be answered in twofold. Yes, it does affect your perception. If you come into a space and you see that most of the hub is run by men when it comes to technical, and it will affect your perception of, will you really find a job or a position, because it's like this thing, right? It's mostly dominated by men. So yes, it does play a role. But also there's the counter argument that if you can't find female trainers to run your training, you don't have to diminish the quality, right? So you don't just have to hire a female trainer just because she's female. She should also be able to train. So how you bridge that gap, once again, is to bring in other women in the space to talk to these women, right? So bring in women in the space that are excelling in that industry, like within the tech space, to come and speak to the women and engage with them. So show them visible role models of women in the space. They may not necessarily see it in the hub, but the hub is not the world definition, right? So you can let them know that, look, as they are coming in within the space, it's important that there's a strive for quality. And at this particular hub, yes, there are a lot of males here and all of that, but you are also working on that. And the hub must also be intentional. Please, as a hub, try as much as possible to go the extra mile when you are recruiting, because you may put out a call for applications for trainers and things, and I know it's very hard. You will get a lot of men and very few women. The women are there, but it's just that you may need to put in something. So if it even means reaching out to other communities where there are lots of women to find these trainers, please do that. And as you are training these women, also be thinking about who can be a good trainer, right? So who can you also be developing amongst the women that you are training to now come in and take a position as a trainer? So yes, as a hub, you have to also be intentional about presenting more women trainers, because it does play a role to the women if they don't see trainers. But to bridge that gap in the meantime, if you don't have a lot of trainers, is to also show the women, other women that are in the space, so that it doesn't seem like it's just a space for men.
All right, thank you, Lud.
You're welcome.
Hi, Regina.
Yes, Rita.
Yeah, so I have another question. So my question, do you think it's advisable to allow women with families have like virtual classes or remote classes, or also like look for remote jobs for them? And how is it possible for them to get remote jobs that are dignified?
Rita, this question, in fact, let me break the answer in two parts. Part one, it's very hard doing remote work here with a family. People always ask me, like, during COVID, am I thinking about working from home long term? And my answer is no. I could not work from home. My 3-year-old daughter did not allow me. It depends on the age of the children. If maybe the kids are older and they are already doing things, fine. But if the women have younger kids, it's very, very hard. Because even in instances where the women have help, you can't be at home and hear your child crying and then you don't go. You know, you can't be like, okay, I'm working on the computer, I'm doing some work. So what I had to do for myself was I had to work at night. So during the day, I was with my daughter. At night, I only worked at night, so I wasn't sleeping, and that was, what the only options available to me, because it was very difficult. So when it comes to remote work, the question is, what type of remote work are you going to present to the women that have families, and at what stage are the family? Now, thankfully, unless maybe now they can afford to take their kids to daycare or take their children somewhere and then have time to do the work, then that's a possibility. If not, it's going to be quite a challenge, and you will have to find sort of even the timing, like the duration of the work that they have to do. You have to find something that's short and that will not take too much time. You'll have to even have a conversation with the women around what are some of the support structures that they will need to be able to work. Because if you are working at home with a family, kids, there is hard. It's hard. Even when there's help, you know, there are so many distractions, and it's hard to keep that focus and to keep that going on. So you will see, you will have to be more intentional about the type of work for these women, about maybe support systems. Obviously, the conversation about resources, the cost of data, and all of that. And then helping the women with consistency. Because imagine if any of their kids get sick, they take off work for a period. I mean, their kids will always come first. So it isn't easy. I mean, it's not impossible. You may be able to find some work, but you will first have to address how do you build that system where they can find that correct balance between work and family. If they don't have that balance, it's going to be very hard to do remote work.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Okay, so we have 8 minutes more. I will send you the slides, and the slides that I will share with Baba to send you. I kept the what is it called? I kept the slides empty for the presentation because I wanted you to listen. Because sometimes when you some people may be trying to read, so the ones I sent will have the bullet points of what I shared with you. So Baba will send that over. I also remain always available. Like I said, I am a gender and tech advocate, so I am very, 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 very happy to support any of your hubs to, you know, create these communities. If you have any question aside from this presentation, like, you can always reach out to me. I will be happy to help. Because when we see more women thriving and winning, I think it's a win for the whole country. So I'm very, very happy to keep that engagement going. So if you have any question afterwards, if you have any challenge in your hub, if you have any struggle or you require some insights, please reach out to me. I will be more than happy to support you so that we can see more women winning.
Okay, thank you very much, Regina, for a very insightful session. We've had a lot of things to go back to our hearts and then look at. So we are very grateful for your time and your experiences that you shared with us. I think it would help us make this more practicable and all that. So we would want to, if there's any documents you'd want to share to us so that we would be able to look at it and then try to, especially when we are coming up with a curriculum for girls and all that, maybe we can do a more gender sensitive one, and all those things.
Great. That's a great suggestion. I'll share with you some other stuff, and I'll even share with you some best cases that is happening across other countries, because right now I'm also judging a challenge with MIT for women and girls across other countries, and there are lots of insightful things that they are sharing. So I'll also share some documentation about some of the best practices working across the country.
Okay, that'll be fine. And then maybe you could also share with us, for some of us who want to build females in tech communities, we can also share some activities that could help us to build these communities and then keep them momentum.
Exactly.
Belinda.
we don't have any other question, any suggestions, or any other thing to say, would say a very big thank you to Regina for your time, and then for all the participants for making time to join this session. And thank you very much to all of you. If there are any other things you want to ask, you can reach out to Ghana Tech Lab, and then would channel your concerns to Regina. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. We are grateful. And then we hope that we'll just inculcate all these things that we've heard today and others to build a more sensitive, a more inclusive community, like Regina said. And let's keep the momentum as always. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thank you all. Bye.